Hey, and welcome to another episode of For the Love of Creatives podcast. I am your Connections and Community Guy host, Dwight, joined by our other Connections and Community Guy host, Maddox. And today, our featured guest is the one and only Surtzy. Hello, Sertsy.
Hi, how are you doing?
Wonderful. We're so thrilled that you could be here today. I am so excited because I know that you have lived an incredible life full of all kinds of adventures. And I know that you've got roots in Kentucky and Dallas, and you have such a wide variety of things that you have done. Tell our audience a little bit about who you are and what you're about.
Um, I'm just a very, very curious person. Ever since I was little, I've wanted to learn how to do everything, which is not really possible. Obviously, we're limited by our bodies and our skill sets and location and stuff like that. But everything that I was able to do, I wanted to try it. But my main goal, in general, is networking people and helping people get. So a little bit of background that I don't know if you know about. I did my degrees in anthropology and sociology, so that helped me figure out how to connect people a little bit more. It taught me a lot about code switching and just the Venn diagram of relationships and intimacy and communication in ways that people can absorb information better. So that helps me a lot with the networking and the arts. And yeah, it's been a whiplash experience, but very, very fun.
You're
Well,
speaking our language because we are
yes.
all about connecting people. Like it's the blood that runs through our veins.
It's so it's an indescribable feeling to be able to see people connect and then make things from it.
Yeah. Well, this is definitely the juice that makes life worth the squeeze. I'm so excited because I've gotten a chance to find a lot of things about you before we actually met, and it's everywhere I turned, it was just another moment of what you started. You actually engaged in creative pursuits at the tender age of 4 years old.
Yeah, my parents are also very into creating, but I think they kind of inspired me because for a long time I just think creating is like a thing you have to be open to, like a thing you have to be willing to give the energy to. And they kind of made it seem like it was just like a part of life. But as I got older, I was like, whoa, I can do more of this and help people. But 4 years old, it was yeah, it was a lot.
I think they gave you a really, really big gift, just leading you to believe that it was just a part of life because it is.
Yeah, but
It-
it's funny to think about as an adult because I remember when my dad, they were separated, so it was different types of creativity, but he would have us go through the trash can and look at things that we could use as canvas because canvas was really expensive at the time for us. But it's funny looking back at that, like the priorities, like just being open to looking through the trash. I've never talked about that before, but
well, and
yeah, it was.
that sounds
Well,
amazing.
I think that's fascinating because you never know what you're going to find. I mean, all my life I've heard one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Yeah, it's just like a humble entry to it.
Well, and I think it's amazing how you put together some pretty eclectic and I'd say, I don't know, whimsical experiences that were part of your formative years. And you managed to nail down something that is, by a lot of measures, very solid, stable, predictable. I mean, you're credentialed. You went to school and you got
Mhm.
your background in anthropology and sociology. So you're firmly planted
Yeah.
in what everyone thinks is, oh, definitely someone that's safe and no one we need to worry about. But little might they know if they just peel beyond the surface, oh my gosh, there's an explosion of different creative directions that you go, and there's very little that you're afraid to do.
Yeah. Do you want to see some shoes that I made for a fashion show?
Oh, we would love to.
Absolutely.
Regarding fear and stuff, because nobody would. I don't think this is very common. It's a moss shoe. It's
Oh my
it's a
goodness.
sustainability show.
I love it.
But you just reminded me of that because I think most people would be like, "Don't do that." There's also a purse with it.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
I'm just so obsessed with nature right now. I'm just like grasping for it because everything's so like especially in America, everything feels very like boxy and
Mhm.
very far removed from nature.
Yes.
But a lot of the designs that I make are very like they're very like out of the box when it comes to like staying in the safe zone. But you
Yeah.
reminded me of that with what you just said.
Well, I find it quite refreshing because my own background is one of being very tethered to the things that were predictable and safe. And it wasn't until I got to experience some loss
Hmm.
around the pandemic that I got in touch with a lot of the things that were, from what I can tell about you, just part of what it was to exist, to just go and figure out where it was that your creative spirit wanted to go and to just go and try things out.
Hmm. Am I able to ask you about what might have encouraged your pivot during the pandemic?
Absolutely. And understand that I know that everyone was dealing with being locked down during that time, and I was with a partner of 20 years who had a severe medical condition, a terminal medical condition, advanced liver disease.
Hmm.
And we were seeking medical care during the time when hospitals were surging, and we'd go into hospitals and have to deal with warlike conditions just to get what's ordinarily, some pretty intense care. And it was made even worse while it was stressed. And my whole life centered around being a caregiver at that point. And um, once the lockdowns were lifted, we still had to deal with the disease. And there was a point, and I guess it was March of 22, where there was a hospitalization that he didn't return from. And despite doing all the things that
Hmm.
were made to prepare for the inevitable, when he died, I was wrecked. And I went through a pretty dark period. And I also went through a lot of exploration to figure out just who I was and what I was really about, and got to really meet myself for the first time. And it's been an amazing experience, an amazing rebirth, if you will.
Yeah. I'm glad you were able to take it and turn it into something like I call it toroidal cycle, but I don't know of a better word. Like when you like cycle it through, like to help regenerate. But
Well,
I'm
it
sorry
was
you had to go through that.
what brought
Thank you.
us together because at the same time he was going through that, I was single at the time and locked in my house by myself for 2 years. Um, I
Hmm.
spent a lot of time on Zoom just to survive, just to have some connection with the outside world, which I'm grateful that I had. Um, but I think when we started to emerge, we for different reasons, but I started saying before the pandemic even lifted, when this is all said and done and I can go back out into the streets without this mask, I'm going to do whatever it takes to create an epic social life for myself. I want my home to be a social hub and not drunken parties by any means, but real connection, real social time where you're spending time with people that you know, like, and trust and want to have deeper meaning in your connection with. And our somehow our desires and our dreams aligned and the universe brought us together. Yeah.
That's so wonderful. I'm glad that you're able to find each other, because it feels nice to be able to like find people that are on the same path and able to help each other back and forth. The internet's an amazing place.
It
We are
is.
very aligned, as particularly on this, the bringing of people together and creating community, and we're very aligned.
Mhm.
Well, and
Yeah.
it's
Oh, sorry.
amazing. I'm sorry. It's amazing how circumstances just work out with things. I feel like we eventually just make it to where we're supposed to be, and I think that kind of leads into how it is that you managed to find your place in Dallas. Like I know that you had
Yeah.
some troubled times with hashtag van life.
Yeah.
Like
Well, I didn't really want to end up in Dallas, but in Kentucky, every time I would Google, okay, so before the pandemic, I did try the 9 to 5, but then the pandemic made it so I was like, I don't want to rely on that. I feel like if I do the 9 to 5, it's going to take my whole life away, and then maybe I won't even have benefits by the time it's time for retirement. It just didn't make sense to me, and I was like, I'd rather just live now. So then a lot of people moved to Texas from Kentucky, or a lot of people all across the US are moving to Texas because of the job opportunities. So I was like, let me try one of those. And I got in an RV and I ended up in Corpus Christi and I met my boyfriend. He was a skydiving pilot and I was a skydiver. So yeah, it just worked out, and his family's here. So this is not exactly at the beach, but it's pretty close to the beach. So that's why I'm staying for a little bit. And I
oh,
like the people. The people are there's just all types of groups. Like if you want to go listen to reggae music, you can listen to reggae. If you want to go eat like Venezuelan food, which is where my family's from, then I can go do that. None of that was an opportunity in Kentucky.
We do have a lot. Dallas offers a lot in the way of culture and art and music and
Clothes.
dining and shopping, and you name it, fashion. It offers a lot. You can walk out your
Mhm.
door and just about, walk oftentimes to, it's not a walking city, but especially if you're in the inner city, there's a lot that's really close.
Mhm. It's That's new to me. I've never really been around a metropolis. I've heard about them and I saw them on TV. But in Kentucky, especially Lexington, it was like one street. There was maybe like 15 buildings, not even that tall. And everybody dressed the same and everybody ate sandwiches and salads. So it's just, and I couldn't even really speak Spanish because it was offensive. So I just got used to it. And now that I'm here, I'm like, whoa, there's so much stuff, so many people.
Well, and I think the beautiful thing about the way things are set up here, like there is a world where you could conceivably walk inside an existence that was exactly what you described in Lexington.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But you can just choose to walk over a street and or just pick a point on the map and you've got all sorts of choices if you want to go and see what's happening with Deep Ellum or um, Lower Greenville. If you're into going to nightclubs and bars and that kind of thing, there's that for you. And if you want things that are maybe very focused on arts and design, we've got all kinds of things with the design district and with the beautiful well everything that they have going on in the arts district. Especially around the spring. I mean, my goodness, there's you can just go walk in any direction once you go to where the M line terminates, and you're just bombarded with all kinds of things on offer for you to do. It's crazy.
So, see, I'd
Yeah.
like to dive a little
I
bit
love the
deeper.
opportunity and the choices.
Oh, yes, lots of opportunity and choices. Yes.
Sorry,
Um,
I think there was a lag. Sorry.
I, I think there
I
is a
heard the
little bit
part
of a
where you said I'd
lag.
like to dive in a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I would like to ask On a internal level, what would you say, maybe it's life experiences or struggles or pain that you've been through, and maybe not, maybe it's something else, but what would you say is the driving factor behind what you create? Where does that come from within you?
Um, so I have Graves' disease, and I discovered it when I was like 19. And I think that I've always kind of wanted to do things. I've always been kind of a dreamer, but some, I think most people think they have time forever. But that Graves' disease made me realize that I could probably not have that much time. And a lifetime isn't very long if you think about it, even if you do live to like the max. So I feel like it's like those things combined with the fact that I want to document a lot. Like I think everyone needs to, if they have things to give, they have to give it out so that other people can grab onto what you have and then make things from that. So I'm just like constantly like I need to make it for not just for myself, but because of the time and because other people probably need to see it. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like a it's a
No,
lot of things.
it makes perfect sense. It makes
Well,
perfect sense.
and maybe
But it's
to add,
exhausting.
if we add a little texture, I know that you've done some things like avant-garde modeling. What is that even
Mhm.
like?
So the shoes that I just showed you, that's for a
Mhm.
show that's it's an avant-garde show. And so avant-garde is basically the way I like to describe it is something that you wouldn't wear every day because it might break. And it'd also be very uncomfortable to sit in. And you can't even really get into cars with it because it's just so delicate usually and it's also strange. And so people would look at and that part's not so bad, but it's basically strange fashion.
I see a lot of that floating across social media, things that I couldn't imagine ever wearing in public. It
Mhm.
makes for a spectacular view as they're running down, walking up and down the runway. But you're right, there's nothing practical about it.
Yeah, it might even be dangerous, like tripping over certain things and stuff like that. But I think the goal is to be able to use it once and then take a picture. And then I think the redundancy of it is what makes it more of an art piece, like a one of one piece.
Yeah, I never thought of it like that.
Yeah, it's like the more ridiculous, the better, almost.
Yeah, I get it. And I've certainly seen that, but you just kind of put like a spin on it where for the first time, kind of understand it. I've kind of thought, because I've always been into fashion my whole life, and I'm like thinking, what are they doing? This doesn't have
Yeah.
anything to do with what people would buy and actually wear on the street, but that's not what it's about.
I feel like it also combines elitism in it for a little bit, or I don't know how to explain it because you have to have a certain amount of money to be able to spend on materials that you will never be able to use again, or that you can't even use at all. Just like hang it up and put it as a display. So it kind of like feels like classist in a bit, but that's a whole other discussion. But
Wow,
I can make it, and I get it from like very very cheap materials, so I'm able to thankfully do it.
that's
But paying for it and
interesting.
stuff, like, off the runway, I don't know. That would be hard.
That's that's really cool and makes us kind of appreciate um, well, and it definitely makes you think. I mean, the pieces that you showed this morning were about sustainability, you know.
Kind of. It's like it's contradictory because it has plastic, and then I'm not
Okay.
even sure what the fake moss is, but
Okay.
I did upcycle the shoes, like the base shoes, but it's just like a lot of layers to it. I wish it was fully sustainable, but if we're
Yeah,
still using plastic, it's hard to
I
say that.
I think that I will now really have a different level of appreciation for those videos as I see them. Or, you know, we've gotten involved in an organization that is about fashion, so we will be attending some things like what you're describing, and I think I'm going to just what you've shared has given me the ability to have an appreciation that I wouldn't have had. So I hope that there are listeners out there that maybe have gained something from what you shared as much as I have. Thank you for that. That was a gift.
Do you,
I'll be able to see it differently now.
yeah. Do you like paintings?
I do. I've painted a little bit. In fact, that colorful one back behind me here is one of mine. Um, the thing about it is I like it, but I don't like doing it by myself.
Oh, oh, we should host a workshop one of these days. But I was gonna say that it's kind of like paintings. Like you can't always exactly use your paintings. I mean, they're decorations. I have some paintings in here. I don't know if you can see them. Some things like that.
Ooh. Oh,
But you
wow.
can't exactly use them. But it's still kind of like it's gotten to the point where I think people are making things not just to use them. A lot of
They're
them are
making them just to make them.
into practice skills, I think too.
And I certainly did my share of that. In fact, there was a point recently, and 6 months ago, where I cleaned the garage out, and I like to paint big canvases, but most of my canvases were practice canvases, so they didn't look like finished art, or they didn't to me. And I donated all of them to a local thrift store, which I doubt anybody actually bought them and hung them on the wall. They probably bought the canvas on the cheap and then just upcycled it, as you said, painted over whatever I did. Um, I knew when I started it, it wasn't art. I knew it was just me practicing technique and playing with color, but my heart's happiest when I'm painting next to someone else. When
Hmm.
I started painting, I took a class, and every week I was in class where I was painting with other students, and I got so indoctrinated in the painting with others that when I ended the class and thought, oh, I'll paint, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy painting by myself.
Yeah, it's a lot more fun with people.
It's an energetic thing for me. I have one piece, but the favorite piece that I painted hangs down in our dining room, and um, I hosted a big painting party where there were probably, I don't know, 15 or 20 people, and we had canvases stuck all over the walls in this big, huge studio, and people were sipping on wine and laughing and talking, having a good time and painting. And the energy in the room enabled me to paint my best piece ever, and I did it in 45 minutes flat. And
That's
then it was like, and
amazing.
I knew it was done. I was like, I'm done. And it was just, it all came from, it didn't look like anything else I'd ever painted. And
Hmm.
it all came from just the energy that was flowing in the room. It was an
That's
amazing experience, and I'll never forget it.
hmm.
Well, and it's a testament to how anything worth doing, worth having, is just enhanced whenever we're able to share it.
Yeah. It's I have this quote that I tell my boyfriend all the time that it's like, did I even go for a walk at the park if I didn't take a picture of it and show my friends or my mom or something? So it's not. I mean, it's still nice, but it's not as nice.
Yes, I love it. Yeah, there are some things that cameras just can't capture.
Yeah.
The things that our eyes see that the camera lens just doesn't have the ability to see and capture. That's always fascinating to me.
Well,
Hmm.
and I know that there's something that comes from just being there. The experience of an event is going to be far different from any way that it can be recorded or relayed. We just get so much more by just being in the moment.
Hmm. It's very true.
Sertsy, Sertsy, do you have any creativity that is not making things like you
Like
know
singing.
for instance, my creativity comes in the form of ideas. We host events and we connect people. We publish this podcast, and I guess you could say we're making something with the podcast, but we're not making something that is like a tangible piece of art that you would display. I write a lot, And that's how my creativity shows up. But honestly, I always laughingly say creativity is comes into every piece of my life. I got really, really creative at one point in my life to figure out how to fold the chip bag down in a manner that it would keep the chips fresh.
That's really cool. That's like an
And I and I
invention.
I I love that, but I see the things that you create, but Dwight also said at one point that you were an aerialist, and I don't know
Yeah.
very much
Um,
about that, and it's certainly a form of creativity. So, but I'd love to know that or anything else that you do that's been creative that hasn't been about making something, because we don't
um,
talk about that much. So I want to
before I answer, where can I read some of your stuff?
We have a Substack
Okay,
page
I'd love
where
to.
and we haven't had it for very long, so there's only a handful of articles in there, but I would love to share that with you.
Yeah, I would love to see some. I was gonna read today since it's all rainy, but creativity wise, I used to host events with my father in Lexington. We used to have wine and dine parties, and then also we would paint and talent shows, and we would invite everyone, and everybody would bring their instruments, and we would just organize events like that. And when I started traveling, that had to stop because you have to stay in one place if you're doing events because you kind of have to be like a hub for people. But
Yes.
um, I sing, I dance, poetry, a lot of writing for academia because I just have to. I have to contribute. I spend a lot of time absorbing academic papers, so I feel like I have to give back. But then aerialing or aerialisting is kind of a flow. So I categorize that as dance, but it does take some or some creativity.
And are you, when you said you think of it like dance, are you on a tight wire
No, it's
or
like a hoop.
trapeze?
It's a hoop,
Oh,
and then
okay.
there's also a flying pole. I didn't really do that one that much because it hurts, but the hoop is my favorite. And then there is silks, but I've only done that a few times. It's really pretty, but it gives you carpet burn, which I don't know if it's worth it for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, you did say as a child you just wanted to do it all, and it sounds like you are out there doing it all, and I love that. What would you say is out of everything creative that you've ever done, what is the thing that has lit your fire the most?
That's really hard to pick because for me it's not the most. It's more like what do I feel like doing today?
I love that.
My
Yeah,
gosh, you two are peas in a pod.
it's just
I
hard to
love
say that
that.
like you it's maybe it's like listening to music. Do you want to listen to the same song all the time or same genre all the time or do you want to listen to a different genre today?
I have more playlists than you can shake a stick at. I set aside a period of my life here about 3 or 4 years ago where I decided that every day I was going to wake up and I wasn't going to have any plan. There was going to be no plan, no schedule.
Whoa.
And every day I would wake up and I would just, from moment to moment, ask myself, what do I want to do now?
Hmm.
And I would only do things that I felt like doing.
That's
And
very mindful.
I did it for several months and it was just life changing. It was the most, at first I thought, I'm going to hate this. I had kind of a health thing that came up and the doctor said, I want you to clear your schedule. I don't want, I want you to rest. Know that you can't do anything. And I thought, oh, I'm going to
Hmm.
hate this because I'm a doer, you know? But it turned out very, very different than what I thought. I didn't hate it.
Did
It
you
was
learn to relax?
perhaps, excuse me?
Did you learn to relax? Or
I
were
I did. I learned to relax, but I'm always a person that always had a plan, It was like there was always a
yeah.
schedule. I was a career hairdresser for 40 years, so I'd wake up every day and my whole day was planned out for me already. They
Wow.
were all scheduled, one right after the other. And so I'd never been in a situation where I could just from moment to moment think, what do I feel like doing right now? And then not having to do anything. Just saying, well, I,
Hmm.
I feel like not doing anything and just sitting and doing nothing. It was perhaps one of the biggest gifts I've given to myself. I would recommend it to anyone. It might be a
Yeah,
little
for
weird or
sure.
uneasy at first, but it I I could talk for hours about what unfolded and what I learned about myself and how
Mm.
amazing it was to just give that to myself.
Yeah, I think that's something everyone should practice. I've tried it a few times, but I, I don't know. I feel like I would just go to sleep, like if that was my option. Not
Well,
every day,
and
but
that's okay too, you know?
yeah,
Just to let it be whatever it is,
yeah,
whatever that is.
that's scary. What if I just watch TV all the time? I need the
Well,
appointments.
it might serve you though. You never know.
Hmm.
And the reason I say that is because I thought, oh my God, I'm going to hate this. And so I did it. And but the more space I created where I didn't force myself to do stuff, where I just was just being, I began to feel something well up inside of me. And
Hmm.
I wasn't real sure what was going on. And then at one point I realized I was just feeling like a level of inspiration that I had never experienced. And I
Hmm.
don't think, and out of that, there was all this inspiration, and then it began to, because, the whole be, do, have, the world is more about um, do, have, and then be. And uh, in just that beingness, the doing flowed from it naturally. I didn't have to force it. I just was suddenly very inspired to do all kinds of things and at a level of inspiration that I'd never experienced. And I don't know whether it would be that way for anybody else or not.
I think that they do say you have to be in a state of flow to be able to create. So maybe it relaxes your mind, or it takes off the blinders or something,
Well, it
and it helps
takes off all
you.
the pressure.
Yeah.
So much of our world, and we talk to creatives every day, there's this pressure to make, to create, to paint, to sculpt. And I've come to realize in my life that you cannot, creativity comes from source. That's my personal belief. It comes
Mhm.
through me, and I can't force it to come through me. I have to open myself and allow it to come through me. And when I really got clear on that and stopped trying to force anything, now it flows so effortlessly. I don't ever have a block, ever,
Hmm.
ever.
That's amazing. I was just thinking about that this morning whenever I was driving. I was thinking about how it got to the point, or my brand got so big that it got to the point where I could have become a factory, but I ended up going the other route and just saying, I'm not going to be forced to paint all these paintings because people are asking me to. I'm just going to do it whenever I want to, and then make it, I think, better than as if it were a factory. So I think it's noticeable. Like when you start being forced as a creative, I think you start to get like noticeably resentful and stuff like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
and two, what you create, because we have these conversations a lot about, do I create something that I know will sell, or do I create what I just feel like creating? And with no regard to whether it may sell or not. And that's a tough equation for most artists,
I think
most
it's a
creatives.
fork in the road that everyone has to decide where they. I mean, I guess you could go back and forth if you eventually want to go back that route, but I think people decide
Well, and
they're
it's
not.
not an either or, it can be an and.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's definitely a place for being able to appreciate that you have to do something where you're getting in the reps. You're not going to wake up and suddenly be an amazing artist one day. You're going to have to get there because you've done the fundamentals to try to build a skill to build the muscle to have the practice to develop your own style to learn about it and
To make the mistakes
Mhm.
exactly
and and have the complete epic failures.
Yeah.
and that's well and the failures are where you might learn the most.
So,
Yeah, I think
Serts,
that they're all inevitable.
Sertsy, what's a project that you're really excited about right now?
Um, So you mentioned the big canvas. I've never ever painted a big canvas, so I've been thinking about it, but I don't have a place for it. But I've been looking forward to it in my mind. Like as soon as I get like maybe a little workshop room or something, I'm gonna start doing that. And I also got a unicycle, so like those are like things that I've been thinking about.
Have you have you gotten on it and been able to balance yet?
No, no, that takes a while. But I use a little rail on the side, and I like act like I'm gonna do it, and I think that's like a good practice.
I can't even imagine how one would learn to do that. I mean,
Yeah,
I've
I have some
ridden a
friends that do
bicycle all my
it.
life, but one wheel,
Right? It's so silly, and it makes everyone laugh. So I can't wait to actually just get on there.
it's a pretty amazing skill. We saw a unicyclist uh, this past winter at a festival at
Fair Park.
Bear Park, and oh my God, she was amazing. She could do anything on that unicycle, and it was one with a really, really tall pole, so she was about 12 feet up in the
Oh
air,
my
with
gosh.
a little wheel on the bottom, and she was juggling, and people were throwing things at her, and she was catching them on top of her head. I can't even. It was a phenomenal display.
I can't
Yeah.
believe people can do that. That's so like so many years and skills combined there.
I have to wonder if she started training as a small child because it
Yeah.
was like a part of her body. The unicycle was literally like part of her body. She had complete control over it like she would any other appendage. It was
Wow.
crazy.
Yeah,
That's
they're beautiful.
incredible. Hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't
So,
have any other projects that I can think of right now. But I do have a calendar that I like whenever I do run out of projects, I go through and I'm like, what's the next thing?
I love that.
well,
It's
and
the only way I can
sometimes
do it. Oops, sorry.
sometimes it's time to just take a break in between projects, and wait for that
No, I can't.
creativity to show up.
Yeah.
So when the time comes to leave Dallas, do you have any thoughts about where you'll go?
I've been scoping new places. Like we just got back from Tokyo, and I don't think Tokyo is exactly the size that I'd like, but some place where it's healthy. I really want to. I don't even think the U.S. is for me anymore, but some place that like I can breathe good air and drink good water.
Yeah.
That's a tall order.
Yeah, it's been hard because it's hard to know if it's like the grass is greener on the other side if it looks like that. But we've been exploring to see.
Well, and that's very cool. Yeah, I always like to keep in mind whenever people talk about looking for greener pastures that wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. We take ourselves with us, you know. You got to really look at your motivations for moving. Some of us are running towards something, some of us are running away from something. And oftentimes what we're running away from is ourselves and we don't realize it. And since we take ourselves everywhere we go, that's why, no matter where you go, there you are.
yeah, that's a really good quote. But sometimes I feel like I'm running away. Like if I feel like the things that I don't like for example, it's like the chemical in the food. I feel
Mhm.
like I should be advocating for like better foods in the place that I am versus like chasing another place. But sometimes it just feels like an uphill battle or like against the tide.
Well, and I would argue that that's by design. It's made to feel that way when you really have far more power than you might think.
Hmm.
And it's, just a matter of applying that creativity.
Yeah. I did a comparison of a Doritos bag in the US versus a Doritos bag in Tokyo. And I think that helped a lot of people. I think a lot of people didn't even notice that they could get by with like regular chips without red 40 or like all the other preservatives.
Right.
That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, we have all kinds of chemicals in our food that doesn't really belong there. It's kind of
Yeah.
amazing.
It's just it feels random. Like bread doesn't have to be so complex. It could just be like yeast and a few other things.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I in the last few years I've gotten to where I really read labels and try to like buy as simple things as I can that have as few words that I can't pronounce as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know that family is something that's a really big driver for you, and not just family of origin, but your family of choice. You mentioned your boyfriend as being someone that's important to you. Um, how have you how have you drawn the connections to build your chosen family that supports you here and in all the places that you go?
I think I find them based on like things that like I've always had this policy since I've always moved a lot like most of my life. I always go to places where the people that that I'd identify with might be like galleries or libraries or museums or universities, and that's how I go and find like my potential family. And I adopt a lot of people as my family. Like it's pretty easy for me to do.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Those are
It's been
words of
really
wisdom and pretty simple, and yet so little of our population really understands that. I mean, you just laid out something that is so simple and doable by absolutely anybody. Just go where people are that are doing things that you're interested in.
yeah. I think a lot of people try and grab people that are in their sphere and make them do things that they want them to do, but I think that's a lot harder.
Way harder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we just gotta let people do what they're gonna do. They're gonna be who they are.
Yeah, like my mom got into crocheting and none of her friends crochet, but so I was like, you should go to a workshop and so you can run into people that also crochet and they already like it. It's a lot
Right.
easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So, Sertsy, how does community play a role in your creativity?
Oh, I don't know how community would not play a role in anything. How I don't know how that would be possible because to me, I think nobody can do anything at all without community. Like we wouldn't be able to speak or find pieces to inspire us or anything. But for
Wow,
me,
that's really well said. I love the way I never thought of it quite like that, but you're right. You know, we are interdependent.
yeah, everything that's ever inspired me was made by somebody or made by groups of people and like built from ancestors of like things that they've made. Or I don't know how to explain that, but everything's like projects. And then I see that and then it helps me do things. And it's just like a never ending cycle.
Do you do a fair amount of collaboration, creating with others?
A lot. I try and do one a day,
Oh,
like
wow.
one project a day.
Tell us a little bit about
So
that.
today I'm doing or no, yeah. So today I have a film rehearsal, and that's a bunch of people involved, and we're all just like reading scripts. And then I'm also doing this rehearsal with this group called the Texas Harmonies. We just sing songs. So like I think Poker Face is on the list for tonight, but it's a cappella, so that's really fun.
Nice.
And then I'm doing the podcast with y'all, so I think this counts.
Yeah, definitely collaboration.
Yeah, just stuff like that.
Wow, that's that's really inspiring. I collaborate at least once a day. Is that what I heard you
I
say?
try, yeah. I do take days where I don't do anything, and I take them as like meditation days. I do it like by force, but I think it helps.
Well, there's a form of collaboration there too as well. You're collaborating with source and you're collaborating with self.
Yeah, I'm still brainstorming though, because it's hard to fight the brainstorms when you're meditating.
Oh, you know, I stopped trying. I just let it be what it is. If it's a time when I'm supposed to get good ideas for creation, I just allow it to be. And if it's time when I really need to be still and quiet, I'll just allow it to be. I stopped trying to make it be anything
Hmm.
but
I'm gonna
just
work on that.
what it wants to be. I let it just be what it wants to be.
Hmm. That seems hard to do for me.
It is. I'm right there with you. It's not easy.
Well,
Mm.
it is until it isn't, right?
Mm.
Yep, exactly. Well, Mr.
Well,
Dwight, do you have some rapid fire questions for Sertsy?
yes, we do. We like to close with some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Are you ready with some rapid
Yes,
fire answers?
I think so.
All right. So we'll hit you with three of them today. First one is best piece of advice another creative has given you.
Um, it's so cliche, but I guess the just do it, just get started. Like everyone says that, so it's not like I can't credit that to one specific person, but they're always just like just get started and like fix the problems as you go, or fix
Yeah.
the confusion as you go and stuff.
Well, that's great. We've heard it on here before, but it bears repeating.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's why
absolutely.
cliches are cliches for a reason.
That's right.
Yes, they are, just like stereotypes.
Next one. What's the most challenging creative skill you're still trying to master?
Probably the one we just talked about, the whole relaxing and being in a sense of flow and just not forcing it. That one I think is hard. It's like it's a paradox because it's like how do you do both things? But it's
Right.
I think a walking beam or a
It is.
balance beam.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. So the last rapid fire question, what is your dream collaboration partner, or who is your dream collaboration partner, be they alive or dead?
I don't have anybody in mind specifically because I feel like it's the whole doing too many things thing because I have idols for inspiration people from each thing like fashion, singing, painting. So it'd be hard to pick one, but I think like a really big project like with involving like and hundreds of people would be a dream come true. Just like big cities coming together to do stuff together. I think that would be wonderful.
I bet you could pull that off.
Yeah.
Maybe
That,
eventually. I feel like it takes a lot of maybe you guys could help me because you guys do events.
You
But
never know. We'll
for
take
me
it
the
forward.
organizing the big groups of people together part is hard.
Yep, that's what we do. And it is challenging. You're right, it is challenging, but it is what we do. So you never
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could be a possible collab right here.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful. Let's brainstorm on it.
Yeah. We definitely will. Well, this has been a fabulous, fascinating conversation. I'm so glad that we sat down to do this.
Thank you so much. I feel like I learned a lot about myself and it was really nice to meet y'all.
Oh, I love that you feel like you learned a lot about yourself. Yeah, I think there is something magical, and I say this a lot, when I mean, we all have a story inside of us. We all have lots of stories inside of us, and we get little opportunities to tell little snippets here and there. But how often do we get to really tell like a big part of the story? And I think there's something magical that happens when you say it out loud where other people actually hear it. Kind of like that thing about would the falling tree make a noise and if there were
Yeah.
nobody in the forest to hear it? Somebody needs to hear it. And, people will hear it now because it's going to go out on the airways for the whole world.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
spending an
Sertsy.
hour with us, Sertsy. This was amazing.
It was wonderful. Bye.